Hello and welcome to Quays News at 5. I'm Ben Wortman.
And I'm Anna Devine. Here's what's coming up on the programme today.
A new policing initiative has been announced to combat child poverty.
We're at Manchester Film Festival where UFC's Champion documentary is premiering.
And St Patrick's Day celebrations kicked off this weekend with festivities happening across the city.
But first, an update on Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky has addressed the US Congress today to once again plea for a no-fly zone on increased sanctions in Russia. Despite this, the Ukrainian president also believes peace talks with Russia are beginning to sound more realistic.
Locally, communities across Manchester are taking it upon themselves to help refugees fleeing the violence. Sophie Ladd has more.
The Ukrainian Culture Centre and Museum in Manchester have been collecting donations to be sent to the Polish border for 2 weeks. On Friday, they shifted everything onto lorries. Then, donations continued to pile in on Monday. This amount had been donated within 4 hours of opening, so much so that they needed an overflow room.
Basically, straight away, there was this humanitarian aid, the whole flood of people wanting to help. So we have absolutely been inundated with assistance of all kinds.
So what kind of items are they being asked for?
Clothes is on a low priority now. I think they were flooding with the clothes aspect. It's mostly, the medical needs, the food needs, the water needs, the kind of things that we're sending out. Children, looking after them. But
I've got baby clothes, boys' clothes and girls' clothes, so children's clothes.
Sophie Ladd, Quays News.
As the conflict reaches its 21st day, the Ukrainian community in Manchester continues to gather at Piccadilly Gardens every Saturday.
Rebecca Amen went down to the rallies.
Manchester's Ukrainian Cultural Centre has been organising weekly rallies in support of Ukraine as the Russian invasion persists.
We are here to urge the world and the society to do something and stand with Ukraine to help us and support us as much as they can.
What does the Cultural Centre hope to accomplish during the rallies?
Every side's trying to bring attention, highlight the issues that's going on in Ukraine. Like you said, we're an independent country and we've been invaded by the Russians.
It allows our community to come together to share the stories.
And I still have family over there, and I know it's very close to my heart. It's very close to what we do.
I think it's very important for the world at the moment. The world order is being rewritten as we speak.
Slow breathing!
Rebecca Roman, Quays News.
We're always being told to use less energy for the environment and for cheaper bills. But what if that didn't make a difference? Liz Fox has more.
The amount we'll be paying for our energy in April will be going up due to a rise in the wholesale price of oil and gas. While some will try and keep costs down by putting on a jumper or switching off the lights, that won't have an impact on the standing charge. That's the daily fee that's added to your bill regardless of how much energy you consume. And for many households in April, it will be going up by almost over 80%.
The standing charge on your electricity or gas bill is a fixed amount that you pay each year, each day, in fact. But over the years, it's come to have a lot of other things added onto it. And those things include the cost of green initiatives, and they include also the cost of reimbursing the big companies for taking over the customers of the smaller companies that have gone bust.
So if the standing charge will also include the costs of the companies that went bust last year, is this a bailout?
This is a political decision. It's like a bailout effectively, but without any sort of control over the consequences of it.
And some customers who are already struggling aren't happy about footing this bill.
I'm on disability benefits, and obviously in the poorer end of society is frankly terrifying. I've only ever once had to use a food bank, and the thought of having to do that regularly makes me feel physically ill.
Ofgem, the energy regulator responsible for these charges, did not wish to comment, and the future for customers like Wendy is still unclear.
I just don't know where I'll be next year this time. In debt is the only honest answer.
Liz Fox, Quays News.
As energy prices are rising, so too are child poverty cases across the nation.
To tackle this, a new initiative has been launched to support families and children living on the breadline. Paige Lockwell has more.
It's a woman that was referred to us by a local church. We noticed that she was putting all the biscuits in her pocket and she had a tiny baby with her. And she explained the baby was 6 months old and he'd never had nappies. He'd been living in tea towels. And so obviously we provided nappies for him, and I also referred her to somewhere so she could get ongoing support.
This is Living on the Breadline. For families battling to make ends meet, this community hub in Manchester is a lifeline for those who are struggling.
From the beginning of the pandemic to now, we've had a 225% increase. And that sort of works out. We used to have like 12 families a week, and now it's about 39. And these are some of the families are quite big. We're talking about 12, 13 people in one house. At the moment, it's not changing. So yes, some families are becoming long-term, and we allow that here. As long as they've been referred, we'll let them come as long as they're needed.
Even before the pandemic, 4.3 million children were living on the breadline. Manchester, Birmingham and Newcastle are some of the worst affected areas within the country. The North East is launching a new policing plan in a community hub in Sunderland, with the aim to reduce the number of children living in poverty within the region.
One of the other things that we've launched is our Operation Payback, so that's money taken directly from criminals and given to community groups. Our violence reduction unit will start to look proactively to help people into employment and to find jobs, because we know that that is a solution to fighting poverty and reducing crime.
This type of operation is the first in the country, working alongside the Department of Education to tackle these issues.
I think Kim McGuinness is really leading the way in the approach that she's taken as our Police and Crime Commissioner, and doing some really incredible work around early intervention that the police are involved in. We made massive progress in reducing the number of children in our region growing up in avoidable poverty. But sadly, in recent years, that started to rise once more. You shouldn't have to have money or parents with means. And I think that's why it's essential that politicians listen to what they've got to say and take action to make life better for them in future.
Earlier today, I learnt more about the increasing representation of British Sign Language. Do you know what that means? Well, soon you will, as the government is encouraging the use of sign language via a new bill. And here's Olivia Snelson to tell us more. Hi, Liv.
Hi, Anna.
So what is outlined in the new bill, and what would it mean for the deaf community?
So basically, this is the government pledging to increase accessibility for deaf people, for example, through the use of British Sign Language when making public service announcements. And it's come from a private member's bill that was put forward by a Labour MP called Rosie Cooper. And Rosie Cooper is the child of profoundly deaf parents, or what's often called a coder, a child of deaf adult. Just like Beth, who is a music student. And for Beth, signing, or a lack of it, has always been a part of life.
I started signing at about 9 months old because the brain processes visual information faster than auditory information. For a parents' evening, you have to specifically request interpreters every year for 5 years. One time they didn't turn up and I had to interpret my parents' evenings. I was the best child that day. I was perfect. But like, not only do I have to turn up just in case the interpreter doesn't, I also have to translate. But if this bill were to go through, then again, it normalises accessibility that should be normal anyway.
Yeah. So as Beth said there, this bill really encourages accessibility for BSL users, and they and those people with connections to the deaf community really felt that this validation of their language is key.
Hello, my name is Kath. There's people in society that can only communicate that way, whereas we have a choice. So I think it's more important that we can sort of meet their needs rather than expecting them to fit in a world which can't meet their needs. They need to feel validated and they need to feel like they're an important part of society.
You mentioned the term coder earlier. That's also a name of a film that made history at the BAFTAs this week.
Yeah, that's right. So this is the first film of a predominantly deaf cast to be honoured at the BAFTAs. They won 2 awards, one being Best Supporting Actor for Troy Kotzer. And this really comes amid increasing representation, whether it's children learning Makaton via Mr. Tumble, or Rose Ayling-Ellis becoming the first deaf winner of Strictly Come Dancing. And the impact of this really showed because there were 5 times as many searches for British Sign Language during that series.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anna.
After 2 years online, the Manchester Film Festival has finally returned in person. It's celebrating the best of independent filmmakers from around the world. Our reporter Matt Baldwin was on the red carpet.
The warmth of a long-awaited hug. The Manchester Film Festival has taken place this week, something that Neil Durham-Croft, the festival director, believes is key being back in person.
That make a film festival really special. There's, from the filmmakers' point of view, we've got filmmakers travelling to Manchester from all over the world to share their films with an audience. So for them, it is just that ability to get their film seen on a big screen in the cinema with a local audience and just seeing the reaction.
COVID has disrupted all aspects of the film production, and the festival this year shows off all pandemic-era indie films and shorts. For debut director Lynn Lorin, the pandemic nearly ended a year's worth of work.
COVID postponed the end of the post-production tremendously because everything slowed down. You couldn't get the meeting with people, and also people working from home made their internet connection really slow. All kinds of stuff happened. So I thought my film would be done early 2020, and it wasn't done until mid-2020.
But COVID has also affected the American film scene. A quirky film by renowned indie filmmaker Dan Miravish has had its own claim to fame before the release due to the pandemic.
If we had waited just a week or 2 weeks, we never would have made the movie because of the pandemic. So, because we started shooting March 3rd, 2020, we got 11 days in, we found out we were the last feature shooting in North America, and we were like, ooh, we don't want to be, what does everyone else know that we don't know?
However, due to the global pandemic, the festival has also been able to grab a major sporting name right from home, as UFC champion Michael Bisping had his documentary premiere at the event.
It's awesome to not only have our first audience premiere be in the UK, but in Manchester, where he started his fight career when he left Clitheroe to come down here and train. So I can't wait for the champ to see it with an audience, because we've seen films with an audience before. He has not seen his own film with an audience, so it should be an emotional night.
But just like his opponents did so often during the fighter's career, the champ was off target on the red carpet with all his excitement. Matt Baldwin, Quays News, Manchester.
And finally, the Manchester Irish Festival boasted up a shamrocking lineup of the events, one of the UK's largest St Patrick's Day parades.
Bella Jewell was there to showcase the celebrations.
Marching bands, glittering green get-ups, and a donkey called Paddy. The Manchester Irish Festival kicked off with a bang in Cheetham Hill.
I believe home is where the heart is, and my heart is truly in Ireland. Both my parents are from County Mayo. They met at a time when life was tough to be Irish in Manchester. There was a saying of no blacks, no Irish. My mum and dad were a massive part of the Irish community. 16 and a half years ago, my dad died. 14 years ago, my mum died. But whenever I come home to Manchester, I feel them, I know they're here, and they'd be so happy that we are enjoying a parade again, once again in Manchester.
All 32 of Ireland's traditional counties were represented in the parade by young and old. Some estimate that over a third of Mancunians have Irish roots. They'll be out in force this week.
My dad, he's from Sligo, and he's actually on this plaque behind me. The original Irish Centre was down the road, down Queen's Road. It's now McDonald's sits where that was. My dad was one of the builders. I'm Irish blood, aren't I? So both my parents are from Ireland. That makes me Irish. But I was born in Manchester, and I've lived here all my life, pretty much. So I'm also a Mancunian, which has its own identity.
Patrick is a wonderful saint, not as good as St Anthony. I lost my wallet last week, and this week the wallet is firmly in the pocket, so I hope my Manchester Irish friends will treat me royally today.
But don't be fooled, this week's not just about partying in Guinness. Worshippers across the city will be celebrating the Feast of St Patrick tomorrow. Before then, the man who brought Christianity to Ireland needs his beauty sleep. Bella Jewell, Quays News, Manchester.
That's all we have time for today, but thanks for tuning in. I've been Ben Wortman.
And I've been Anna Devine. See you next week. Thank you.